Hi, this is Will Stewart from OnlineChessLessons.net, and today I'm going to be continuing my coverage of a couple of excellent games from Linares in the past. And so this game is from Linares 2005, and it's a game between Rustam Kasimdzhanov of Uzbekistan against our current world champion Viswanathan Anand of India. And so Anand with the black pieces, and Kasimdzhanov leans out. I believe this was round 11 of Linares 2005. Might have been round 10, actually. I believe it was around 10. And so here, take it a little slower. Anand signifies with d6 that he's ready to most likely enter some type of Najdorf. I believe Anand was pretty close to the top of the tournament standings, and so Najdorf makes sense. He needs to play aggressively and try to win some points towards the end of the tournament. And Kasimdzhanov plays c3. It's a move that's fairly rare at the top level. Definitely, this is some type of anti-Sicilian. Typically, White wants to achieve a d4 positions. Occasionally, can transfer into some type of something similar to a Roy Lopez, you could say. And now a simple tactical idea. If knight takes e4 here, it seems like White just dropped a pawn, but queen a4 check, and that's going to drop a piece. So not quite going to work with that. So it's if it looks too good to be true, especially this early in the opening, it probably is. So Anand plays bishop g4 here, which is a good move. I like it because that bishop on c8 can often become a problem in these types of openings. And if black does neglect to play that, often White will play h3, and black can have something of a problem getting that piece developed or getting rid of it, even with a trade here. So plays proceeding along pretty standard lines, you could say. Black is happy he's getting rid of this. White's got the center. Probably going to play d4 pretty soon. But Kasimdzhanov had something else in mind. He plays immediate knight f1, which seems to be risky. Not so risky. It just seems a little strange, because he could castle. He could have played h3. Just castle h3 here. Queen c2 seems not quite so good because of rook c8, which would put the x-ray on the queen. But he went with the immediate knight f1, so he's kind of hoping for a close game. I don't know. And so Anand plays the most principled move. I mean, he could have played queen c7 here and then d5 to utterly prevent e5 as a response, but he went ahead and played d5, and it makes sense. If your opponent plays, he undevelops a piece like this knight d2 to f1, the most logical thing to do is to try to break open the position, break open the center before he regroups successfully. And so black is certainly equalized, and with pawn takes, it seems that Kasimdzhanov has admitted that this knight f1 was maybe not a very good idea, because now black is going to be extremely happy after knight takes d5. This backwards pawn on d3 is always going to be a weakness for White, and so it's not a gigantic weakness. It can be defended pretty easily, but it's just a weakness, you know. And maybe if black plays g6, bishop g7, it's just going to be a very, very comfortable position for black. And queen a4, not so impressed with this plan. But the idea is sideways. You know, it's easy not to see the attack on the bishop here, I guess. And so I guess forcing more or less. I mean, h5 by black is gonna look kind of silly. Not h5 doesn't really make any sense. So I guess queen a4 maybe, in the sense that it's more or less forces bishop h5. And so knight g3, and a nice in-between move here, I guess, by Anand, knight b6, kind of putting the question to the queen, where's it going to go? And back to d1, and I thought this was kind of strange, but it makes sense, because Rustam Kasimdzhanov, he didn't want to move it to queen c2 because it walks into a pin. And obviously you don't want to just walk into a pin. You got to make your opponent earn it. And so now queen d1, and the whole queen a4 idea looked kind of silly because he went out to a4, black went back to h5, and then he went back to g6 and regrouped for black. Bishop on g6 is well placed, namely attacking this weak pawn on d3. And so now white begins a4s. Makes sense. He wants to disturb black's pieces, and you know, the knight is certainly easily disturbable there, as well as bring the queen back to a4. And so now some possible ideas. I believe I saw a recent game of Ivanchuk, somewhat similar in this position to, I believe it was a game with Anand at Amber, maybe a blitz game with Anand at Amber 2011, and he ended up getting the queen out here, and he got a6, weakened that knight on the knight on c6, the foothold there. But anyway, that's just some other reference. So it seems weird with this plan with the queen, and, you know, everything on the a file here. But Ivanchuk's play was pretty convincing in that game. I don't know. I'm still not totally sold on the idea. And so here white plays d4, rids himself of the weakness of the backward pawn that was on d3. But I just feel black's position is more harmonious. It just feels more natural. It's a somewhat imperceivable difference. Namely, the bishop on c1 doesn't have a great square to move to. So that would be a place to start. f5 by Anand. He took 3 minutes considering this move, so he's kind of planning it. And it makes sense. If white plays f5, it would be a gross positional blunder. Not to mention he would just lose his queen. So that's obviously that's not going to happen. So it looks like black is just going to go ahead and get f4 in if he wants it. And rook d8 first. f4 again by white is going to be a horrible mistake. Rook d1, and still there's bishop on c1. White has a bad piece, and it's preventing him from connecting his rooks. So definitely not good there. And f4, and now black is getting some serious counterplay. Knight e4. The queen still on a4 is, you know, taking some squares in the center laterally. Queen e5, and Anand smells the initiative, picks it up, and this is not good. Definitely not good for white. Bishop f3, and white is barely holding this together. The queen again, seems a little bit loose, not to mention the bishop on c1 has absolutely nowhere to go. And b5, a nice shot by Anand. Also, obviously, if takes, white's going to drop a piece. So essentially forcing queen c2. And now white has just been pushed into a position you didn't want to get pushed in. The pawn on b5 is seizing some great space, and you're seeing a lot of pressure against white's position. And knight f6 is a solid common sense move to increase the pressure, just increase all the pressure. It's called a focal point, and in just focusing on that one square, that one piece, that one pin. And after takes and takes, bishop e4 was not possible because white's position is too loose and would be overloaded after bishop takes e4. And so here he played queen b3. Had to move, might as well make a threat or put a pin. And in this position, black's advantage is undeniable, and pretty simple play from here on out by the current world champion. And e4, simple idea. If queen takes e4, rook d1 back rank mate. g3 to try to make some space, and now e3 to break up the position, and that bishop on c1 cutting off the rook on a1 is definitely not good. And after queen takes b5, f2 check. And so Anand just sacked a few pawns. I think he sacked just 2 pawns there, possibly 3 in the last couple of moves. 2 pawns. So white's up 2 pawns here, but this bishop on c1 not doing anything, and black's pieces are flowing pretty well. And after rook f8, check. King f1 to stop the imminent queening of that pawn. And now after queen h6, he's gotta defend the Not even the h2 pawn. He doesn't even take it. He plays check. There's no reason to take it. The game's going down on the white squares. So there's no reason to take h2. I'm sure white is still winning there, but it's definitely a little harder. And now queen f5. And there's simply no defense against the invasion of the queen to d3, invading the white squares. And Kasimdzhanov resigns. So a fantastic game by Anand. I mean, studying his games, really in the past decade, 15 years. Once he smells the initiative or any scent of an attack or forcing moves, forcing the opponent to do what he wants, he usually closes the deal and seals it with a W. So Anand, a very dangerous player. He's got a smooth style, but very dangerous. So this is Will Stewart from OnlineChessLessons.net, and thanks for tuning in.